Hello and welcome to Nigeria, the road to 2019, a series of programs where Arise News places the audience and the choice at the heart of our coverage of the upcoming presidential elections. I'm Charles Aniagogo. Coming up in the next 60 minutes, all the news, comment and analysis that provide unrivaled insight into Nigeria 2019, including weeks after the official start of the election campaign season, the parties are still warming up for the big show in February. The opposition PDP has been holding a few rallies across Nigeria, and the ruling APC appears to be keeping it all closer to home in Abuja. And the other parties, well, we aren't seeing much of them either. We'll speak to one of the main parties and one of the alternatives about what is going on. The battle of the two northerners for the keys to the Aso Rock presidential villa is heating up. The two main candidates continuing to tear into each other, albeit remotely, as the election campaigns gather speed. The incumbent president, Mohammed Buhari, insisting that the corruption the opposition PDP inflicted on Nigeria during their 16 years in power was on a scale that this country has never seen before. And the challenger, Atiku Abubakar, telling mammoth crowds of supporters that the APC has put a rope around Nigeria's neck and is slowly choking the country to death. Meanwhile, all the other parties waiting or perhaps lurking in the shadows, hoping for the APC or the PDP to trip up so they can fill the gap. Fascinating, these political shenanigans, aren't they? Well, later in the program, we'll hear from someone who is vying for the top job, but not on the platform of the APC or the PDP. But first, let's speak to a member of the House of Representatives who is with the main opposition PDP. Obinna Chidoka is chairman of the House Committee on the Environment, and he joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
I take it you heard the president's budget speech. I mean, let's start from there. From the point of view of the opposition PDP, what did you make of it?
Thank you for asking that. Going by the reception the president got today, I'm sure he's going to go back home and really think about what's going on in the country. A budget of about 8.2 trillion, $60 benchmark. $2.3 million barrels, or 2.3 million barrels per day, and 305 naira to $1. But the question is very pertinent. What has happened to the 2018 budget? You have such budget of, I can't remember what they called it, consolidation or something. And as of today, the 19th of December, that budget hasn't done better than 9.98%. And so, you've seen a lot of deficit in the budget, you've seen a lot of non-implementation of the budget, which itself runs counter to the law. So we have a government that is not, working towards a determined outcome. Most of the indices they are given to arrive at the 2019 budget is non-existent. Okay, so if you're hoping to have a $2.3 million per barrel per day oil production, that will show up the budget of 8.3 trillion, then you must have made some serious investment in the infrastructure that produced that kind of barrels of crude oil per day. But we haven't seen it. They're hoping that some of two acreages or projects will come on stream, and we haven't seen anything to that effect. So you're talking about projects you've done within the 2018, and it's all hogwash.
So it clearly didn't hit the right note for you.
No, definitely not.
What would the PDP have focused on in the budget, given the obvious limitation of funds and the clear, inescapable obligations which the federal government has to meet, such as debt servicing, recurrent expenditure, those sorts of things?
So the people have to live first for you to have a country. And so some of us will have been in focusing on the social safety nets. Also, making sure you have a robust economy that will drive not only the informal sector, but create jobs.
Yeah, but we're talking about the budget. I mean, you're talking about social nets. That means spending more money. Where would that money have come from?
listen, you have a budget that the president have said that they have spent some of the money on the infrastructure that is non-existent. So where is the money? Those monies are monies you should have used in other sectors. Okay, so while you're chasing the Enugu on nature that is that we don't see anything going on, or the second Niger bridge, you don't see anything going on, those projects can still go on, but you can refocus your budget slightly more and put those expenditure in areas that will affect the general life of the well-being of the people directly. Now, part of it is that, like they said, they are going to plow in the money they've recovered from the loot, the Abacha loot,
the PDP loot.
There's no PDP loot.
Because, I mean, that's one of the things they've been banging on about, that you guys ripped the country off.
Yeah, who are the guys?
Well, the PDP.
Who are the guys? There's
the PDP.
There's no PDP. The same guys.
What do you mean there's no PDP?
The same
that's
guys,
your party.
what I mean by that is that when you say the PDP, the same guys who were in PDP are today in APC. And so when you say PDP, you're not talking about.
Well, it's not everyone
you're not talking
who was
about
in the
Atiku.
PDP that's in
Most
the
of them.
APC. I mean, there are a lot of people from other parties
right now,
who are
yeah,
in it as
in
well.
APC. So it's just a vicious circle that is going on within them. And for you to have said that you plot the money back, what we're saying, where's the accountability? Such money should have been used in checking out other sectors of the economy and making sure that the projects are carried out and done. Listen to this. We'll go on oversight functions. And what we see is not very encouraging, to say the least, because the budget is not performing. And why is it so? So these are the explanations we will have thought that we will have gotten before the budget presentation, that this is the issues, these are the issues we're having. And of course they said borrowing, what happened to the Eurobond, if I may ask, and other indices they gave us that are not performing. So the onus is on them to tell us, okay, this is what has happened, and this is where we're headed to. As I said, the nation's state, the ship of the nation state must sail in the same direction.
Right. Now you talked
direction
about
of growth.
Right. You talked about the fact that I mean you're a member of the National Assembly and that you go on oversight functions, and you're chairman of the Environment Committee.
And Habitat. Yeah.
What are you hearing? Because I mean the environment is a crucial part of global discussions right now. There's a lot of concern about what is happening, a lot of concern around global warming and so on. Are you actually seeing in this campaign the two main parties, the APC or your party, the PDP, talking about the environment in a way that would satisfy you, somebody who knows a lot about those things?
Absolutely. Of course, Atiku Abubakar is one man that I know for sure who understands how this country runs. Having been a vice president before now, and of course running the Economic Council for many years. To show you that this government doesn't fully grasp the issues we have with the environment. The Ministry of Environment has a paltry sum of about 9.6 billion as their budget, both capital and overhead. I mean, it just goes to show the importance they attach to the environment.
But you're the one who approves that budget, or who goes through it and passes it. Why is it so low?
I can't go over the ceiling. It is what they presented. What I can do is to run around it, to juggle it around.
To redistribute it.
To redistribute.
Right.
To reallocate as necessary, and then can go above the ceiling. If I have my way, I'm going to make the budget 50 billion because the environment needs it. Now, coming off from the 11 frontline states in the north, where you have desertification, you go down to the southeast, where you have, of course, deep gully erosion, and those issues we have there. Go to the south and talk about the ocean tide and the erosions that coming from the ocean bird, and other issues we have environmentally. Okay, so the government really needs to, and coupled with that, of course, everybody's talking about climate change, and of course, you see some of the effects that we have today. There is a community in Ondo State we visited recently. I can tell you that every year the ocean is rising at almost about 2-3%. And at the rate is going, the community will be extinct in probably in about 10 years. So the government needs to have a proactive action in dealing with environmental issues.
Right.
Let me give you an example. The whole of the Niger Delta is about 7,000 square kilometers, and you have pipes crisscrossing all over the whole place. And there has been issues about Ogoni cleanup, for example, which is supposed to be a pilot to clean up of all the other areas. Now, that project was started by Goodluck Jonathan, or the UN had talked about it from 2011. Yeah, give it to give it to them. Of course, we're driving towards the cleanup. But from 2015, when they took over till now, we're still at the process of mobilizing to the site to start the cleanup. Now, the problem I'm having is that we should have a systematic way of making sure that projects are carried out within the specific time frame. That is what I'm having here. You know, so we have a project timeline. Why don't you stick to the timeline? So it shows me that we don't have people who are in government who are watching those timelines. So once you don't do that, then there's a problem. So once you have the timeline to make sure that you're going to clean up starts at this time and ends at that time, and if it doesn't happen, this person gets the flag, or this person gets queried, or this person gets this, then we can follow the timelines and make sure it's done. Now, environmentally, Nigeria is at the precipice.
Yeah, but you've got oversight functions.
Oh,
what are you doing in that direction?
Definitely, the oversight function is to point out the areas where they've got it wrong.
Right.
And my duty is to make sure that I report back to them and say, this is not right, this is not right, this is right.
Yeah, but do you call them to order? Do you ask them to appear before your committee and answer to the reasons why things are not going the way they should?
Absolutely. And of course, they will come up with answers, and that some of them are not very satisfactory. But what other punishment can I give? Other than to caution or to admonish or threaten to summon or summon them to come. And at the end of the day, the excuses will surmount into the bottlenecks you have going forward.
That must be very frustrating for you.
Absolutely. Because you are trying to move as fast as we can to achieve the much we can within a short period of time.
And you think that you would achieve more if it was a PDP government there?
Yeah, because I think they will listen to me some more.
Yeah, but they didn't do much in the same direction. I mean, it took years. The Ogonis have been complaining for many, many years. Yeah. And your government, your party was in power for 16 years. Yeah. And it didn't do anything to clean up the Ogoni land.
The reports came into fruition under the President Goodluck Jonathan. Okay.
Yeah, but the fund was started by President Buhari. The fund that Nigeria put $10 million into, or thereabouts, was started by President Buhari.
No, that's exactly not correct. So the proposition by the United Nations gave how the funds should come. The joint venture partners are supposed to bring $1 billion. It is out of that $1 billion, they've only released $10 million.
Yeah, but
now they've gone further.
And
they've gone further than that. I'm sure in the account there's close to $200 million now, and they're about to go onto the field to start the implementation. The point I'm trying to make is that if you say that the PDP government didn't get it right, then I expect you to get it right. You see, so what is the change about? A change is turning from good one to something better. You cannot go to the next level if you haven't gotten the level where you are at very well. So the next level you are going to go to is the best level. So if the level we're at wasn't good and you want to go to the next level, then you should depart from what they were doing. And so once they haven't done it, it tells me that they have gone slower because everything is on track. All we needed to do was the driving force, somebody who will sit over the table and say, this is how the program should run. And then keep to the timelines. And then bring sanctions, heavy sanctions. And say, if you don't keep to this timeline, this will happen or that will happen.
Right. Well, let's talk about the rather slow start to the election campaigns. A number of big rallies by your party, the PDP. There was one in Gombe. There have been a few in the sort of Sokoto and Ibadan and all that sort of thing. But still, it all feels lukewarm and quite lethargic. I mean, you have to admit that the campaigns from both main parties, what you might call round one, the kickoff, as it were, has got off to a rather slow, uninspiring start. I mean, when are we likely to see them, or at least your party, the PDP, get into round two? And will that promise to be bigger and more interesting?
Absolutely. So I'm sure the PDP will have a plan.
You're sure you have a plan?
Yes.
Or you have a plan?
No, it's a figure of speech.
I know speculating.
Sort of, no, not speculating.
Perhaps you have a plan.
I know we have a plan to take over the government of Nigeria, take over the reins of power, and that is by reaching out to people. Campaigning is all about selling yourself to the people that you want to govern and telling them the positives you're going to bring on the table when you take over power. And so the people have to buy to that idea, and that is what we're doing to sensitize the 6 geopolitical zones. We've been going to so many other states. Gombe was just some few days back, and then from there we're moving to other parts of the country. And then after that is done, of course, don't forget that the party is structured in such a way that the campaigns are going on at the grassroots level. So as I'm campaigning for the House of Reps, I'm campaigning for our gubernatorial, for presidential candidate and his vice.
It's a multi-layered.
A multi-layered campaign that trickles down or moves down to the people at the bottom of the ladder, that is the grassroots. And it's an idea for us for them to understand where Nigeria is at today and why they need to take the positive step to make sure that there's a change of government. Okay, that's why we're a democracy.
Right.
So we need to talk to the people. It says it's government of the people, by the people, for the people, and you have to really speak to the people, speak to the heart of the people. Now, what is it that the government haven't done well? Like let me not go into that first and answer your question critically. The next stage of the campaigns is going to be more electrifying. You're going to see a lot of, talks, a lot of town hall meetings. The presidential candidate is having one with the youth in Lagos. We're having rallies with women. We're talking to different groups for them to understand where Nigeria is today. And also, like you said, not only multi-layered, it's multinational. Of course, we're going to other countries to let them understand where Nigeria is at today and why Nigeria needs to be rescued now, not tomorrow. Once the elections go on, we expect that the PDP, ably led by Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, should take over the reins of power to bring about economic growth.
And looking at the 2 main candidates, you mentioned one, Atiku, the other, of course, Buhari. Both have been in government in various capacities. What do they represent beyond their own personal interests and personal ambition? Is there an ideological argument going on, or is this a personal argument?
So what I'm going to say, take it to the opposite for the other candidates. I'm going to talk about Atiku Abubakar, and whatever I say about Atiku Abubakar now, take it for the opposite of the other candidate, our president, His Excellency Muhammad Buhari. Atiku represents growth. He wants to get Nigeria working. When you listen to him speak, all he wants is that every Nigerian should have some money in their pocket, food on their table, and the ability to go to bed with their eyes closed. So you have the rest of mind so that your productivity can be high. So when you look at a country that have those indices, then every other indices will continue to grow. When you get Nigeria working, the other parameters has to be in place. So you're talking about jobs, you're talking about opportunities, you're talking about equality, you're talking about economic growth, you're talking about security, or rather insecurity that we have today, but to make sure that every Nigerian, wherever we are, even outside the country, you're secured. Once you have the green passport, every country should respect you. Now go about and listen to the mimes or the ridicule Nigerians go through and the harassment we go through outside the shores of this country. Now once we get Nigeria working, which is what he stands for, that's what he wants to do. So take Nigeria from where we are today with the whole indices at the bottom level, be it ease of doing business, be it poverty index, be it job losses. All the indices are not good. So
yes, but all that started a long time ago. It didn't start 3.5 years ago. Let's be quite clear on that. But the question I want to ask you is, how will the loser take his defeat, and how important will that be to this election process? Because the PDP has been urging its supporters, I watched some of the rallies and so on, to robustly defend their vote and not to allow the APC to quote unquote deprive them of their vote. I mean, it sounds like the PDP is preparing not to accept defeat in any case.
And to go back to the last point you just made, and which I will keep saying, if you think that the position where we are in the country today didn't start with this government, the point I'm trying to make is that 3 years is a long time to show us, to point us to a direction that is opposite from where we're coming from.
Yeah, but the point is that you guys are very good at criticizing, but they've been in power for 3.5 years. You were in power for 16 years, and it was under your government to a large extent, because the previous government before you was a military government. Yes, unquestionably, the Nigerian passport was devalued because of a lot of things during that period, but the crisis deepened because a lot of the advance fee fraud and all the 419 things happened during that 16-year period, which is when respect for the green passport, I mean, I live in London, I travel all over the world, that's when the respect for that green passport fell. So for you to sit here, I mean, it smacks of hypocrisy to sit here and be challenging the government to, in 3.5 years, fix what you destroyed in 16 years. I mean, that's desperately fresh, isn't it?
Point of correction, PDP didn't destroy Nigeria in 16 years.
No, I'm talking about a specific instance.
I'm
isolating one specific instance.
Nigeria in 16 years.
The image of this country suffered desperately under your party.
We've seen the data coming out of phone and data usage in Nigeria. Before 1999, you wouldn't be having this iPad and the multiple phones you have.
Yeah, but you're saying it as though you guys came up. You're saying it as though you came up with a novel idea. You didn't come up. You simply followed the trend that was happening all over the world. Mobile phones were coming in.
Why?
All it did
so
was.
Why can't this government follow the trend?
No. But
it's very simple.
But mobile phones are everywhere.
No, but why can't you follow the trend?
I don't understand.
If mobile phones were everywhere, what about today? Why did you tell us you're not going to pay subsidy? You're still paying subsidy. Why is it that you tell us that you're going to make motor spirit available petrol, and yet the refineries are not working?
No.
So why don't you follow the trend?
Yeah, but can I just make this point?
Yes.
When you came into power in 1999, you didn't tell Nigerian people you were going to transform the communication sector. You didn't even have any idea how the communication sector was going to blossom when you came into power. You simply followed a global trend. That was it. Okay. The other global, so what could have been used as an example is the fact that you had 16 years to fix electricity in this country.
Okay.
You privatized electricity, you did all the things, but we never saw any power. Those are the kinds of critical issues that people are going to hold you to account for.
Absolutely, and we're accounting for it. So let me point to that. There was a government, be it military, who was here before PDP got here. Now, if you say it wasn't a novel idea and it was already in circulation, the military government should have the common sense to bring about the communication phones. But they didn't. A PDP government came and saw the rationale in having mobile phones and having multiple providers, and it was done.
Actually,
the PDP government came in and brought in the ICPC. The PDP government came in and brought in the EFCC.
Yeah, but to correct the point you made, mobile phones were in Nigeria in the 1990s.
Absolutely.
The difference, because I remember the BBC working with the BBC, there were the big mobile phones that used to cost something like $5,000 a month to have one of those.
Yes.
So there were mobile phones. It's just that by the time you came in, it was liberalized, the sector was liberalized further, which meant that the prices came down and more people had access to it. It was not unique to your, I mean, it was here already.
With the benefit of hindsight, it sounds very simple. It sounds quite simple. I know some of the partners who started great companies, and one of them cashed out and said, this company is not going to work. Many years after, the companies are working. So the guys who came when we opened up the sector in Nigeria, the MTN and the Glo were not the first. The first companies that came didn't see any prospect in Nigeria, and they regret it today. So it sounds very simple with the benefit of hindsight, what the government had done. At that time, it was a big deal. If it wasn't a big deal, we're all human. Forget whether it's the military or democracy, they will have taken the initiative to say, let us bring this to be.
Okay, let's move on from there. And you talked about insecurity.
Sure.
There is clearly a huge continuing problem of insecurity. We've just heard of the killing of the former Chief of Defense Staff, Alex Bade, by unknown gunmen, the second general to be killed in the space of something like a month. How much is security an issue here, and what would you do to fix that?
Security will be probably at the crux of the matter, at the nexus of what a person and a nation will stand for. Okay? If there's no security in great countries like the US, like in France or others, I'm sure the countries will collapse. So it is something that should be taken seriously. And being chairman of environment has given the opportunity to transverse this country.
I was just going to say that as chairman of that committee, there is a relationship between climate change, desertification, drying lakes, and all that sort of thing. And security.
And that's part of the thing I was talking about when you talk about the recharging of the Lake Chad. It was going to cost about $15 billion or in that neighborhood. And I'm sure those issues were at the front burner before Ms. Amina Mohammed left for the UN. And I can tell you nothing has been done as of today, because the guys who are in the Lake Chad Basin are moving inwards. Now, it's going to get to a time where there is nowhere to run in this country. So if you're running away from the difficult drought going on in the north, you're running away from gully erosion going on in the east or in the south, you're going over rising ocean train in the coastal areas, a time will come when there is nowhere to run. Now you're going to be running after some scarce resources. So the herders, farmers, the conflict will continue until Nigeria begins to see a novel idea that will help us solve these problems. If you go to a place like Bama in Maiduguri, for example, I visited there in 2016. It is raised down to 99%, raised down completely, raised down, and the governor there is trying to rebuild it down. Now you have the insecurity
when you say raised down, what do you mean?
Burnt.
Okay, right.
Burnt, run over. I mean, every single building was touched. It's like something from the movies. It's unbelievable. They didn't leave. They went from house to house to house to house and raised down every single thing you can think of. That's the insurgents. The insurgents, yeah. So you can imagine that if Bama was housing, let's give an example, 100 or 200,000 people, those of them will pour into the metropolis, they move going into Maiduguri. And then some of them, of course, will move up from there into Chad and into Niger or wherever they can find them to do. So also you have people migrating. So these are environmental migrants who are living different places. And so also in the southeast, people have lost farmlands. There's issue of flood occasioned by, of course, climate change. And those who are in the flood-prone areas are also moving out into higher lands. Right. Now, the point we're trying to make is that there's a nexus connecting the environment, the habitat, talking about the new urban agenda. You're also talking about the livable spaces and, of course, security. So what this government will do is to tidy up these major areas to make sure that you and I live in a society that we're not going to go to our farm and get gunned down
but
like
you're
a former
telling us
chief of defense staff.
Yes, but you're telling us this is what you're going to do. You're not telling us how you're going to do it. It's very easy to sit there and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. The question is, how are you going to do it?
How are we going to do it? Now, part of the thing I know this our government will do is to strengthen institutions that are working there. There's an institution called the Great Green Wall, for example, which is supposed to get 15% of the ecological fund. It hasn't really been approved. If you take Great Green Wall, for example, like what I've seen in Egypt, and fund them and run it properly, the Great Green Wall will take the 11 frontline states from Jigawa to Zamfara to Maiduguri and all that, and begin to push the desert back and bring people back in. But how can you do that with the insurgents? Okay? So you're going to have a system that the interactions are ongoing between our candidates and foreign powers. They need to understand that we're going to build a military that will respect the rights of every citizen. Once that is done, they will give us access to what? To bring about equipment that will help us fight insurgents.
Right.
And secondly, also build about Daikon that used to be in Kaduna that can produce some arms for us. And there's so many of them scattered all over Nigeria. There's one in Bauchi that repairs and mechanizes our armored tanks. Is basically almost not functional. So there are other areas that the government will need to look at and strengthen within us in Nigeria, and that is how we're going to do it. Okay. What we're going to do is to make our money work for us.
Okay. On that sloganed note, Obinna Chidoka, Chairman of the House Committee and of course a member of the main opposition PDP. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're watching Nigeria, the road to 2019. Plenty more still ahead, including we'll speak to the presidential candidate for the Advanced People's Democratic Alliance, or APDA, Shitu Mohammed Kabir. Where does he stand on the big issues that concern Nigerians? Stay with us. Welcome back to Nigeria, the road to 2019. I'm Charles Anyegolu. Well, the campaigns are underway and have been for several weeks now, yet we're not hearing much from the main parties or the alternatives. Everything seems to be crawling, and at this stage, with 2 months to go before the main event, it all feels rather lukewarm. So why is that? Well, let's speak now to the presidential candidate for the Advanced People's Democratic Alliance, or APDA, Shitu Mohammed Kabir. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
First of all, where exactly do you fit in the larger scheme of political things in Nigeria? Because it appears that for many Nigerians, there are just 2 candidates with an additional maybe 3 others, and the rest are pretty much indistinguishable from the background foliage. I mean, where do you stand in the pecking order of who's who in Nigerian politics?
For us, we believe that you could be thinking in maybe the media, maybe to say 2 parties are main, but after the 2019 election, I believe you will now see that the political terrain has changed from what you might be calculating now. I believe that our party, Advanced People Democratic Alliance, will take, because we are contesting the whole Nigerian state, and we have formidable forces. We have people that can win elections. In Kano, we have Mohammed Abacha. In Sokoto, we have Senator Gada. I don't not mention
governorship
names for governorship.
Right.
We have senators, and we believe that at least we'll coast home with enough numbers of gubernatorial, senatorial, and House of Rep and state assemblies. So for now,
so you're not holding out hope for the presidential elections, which you're clearly running. Well, you didn't mention that.
You see, you cannot be running and believing that you win if you know that you cannot win states, and you cannot win assembly, because you cannot win senators and House of Reps. I have to give you those statistics for you to know that yes, I have confidence that we'll take it. We'll take this slot.
So what are you counting on to help you achieve victory? Are you, for instance, counting on a lot of disappointed voters who have tried both the PDP and the APC and found them wanting, and you hope that these sort of disgruntled or protest voters will come to you?
For us, we don't believe in maybe protest voting. We believe that each era, each time has its peculiar. And 2019, the peculiarity in 2019 is that I'm young, I have been around, they've been in an area that Nigerians have seen what we have done in area of party politics, in area of putting Nigerians in a better perspective. And I believe that I will be judged by those antecedents. And
well, tell us what you've done.
Good. For us, I started politics in 1992, and in 1993, I was chairman of this municipal local government of NRC. And
what municipal local government? You mean
municipal
Abuja, the federal capital territory.
Right, territory. Okay. And by my antecedents, Nigerians know that what comes first before me is Nigeria, is the betterment and the welfare of the country, and how we stand in international politics. And we believe that whoever has gone through this will know that what I'm saying is that we must not, as a country, we must chart a way for ourselves. When China got themselves into where we are here today, what Chinese did was to now, took capitalism, took socialism, and marry it with communism, and bring out socialism in Chinese character. And that is what we have been preaching in this country, to say, look, enough of the way we are running the country. From 1960s to date, we have been running on one thing. We call ourselves capitalists. Are we, what type of capitalists are we?
I have to just say that you're making a very important point here. And you're one of the very few people I've actually heard talking about this, because you're talking about an ideology, a political ideology, which is something that we just don't find other parties talking about.
That is because we are, over time, I was elected in 2013 as chairman of African Young Leadership Forum in China. I've gone to several courses in US, in China, in UK, and we have been able, I've studied the economy, I've seen that until a country chart a way for itself.
That is unique to that particular country.
Because will you marry your economy?
It's a very interesting point.
You must marry your economy with your culture. You must marry your political system with your culture. What are our cultures? We had empires. How were those empires run? How are we running the country today? It's different. When I go back to say, when Chinese find themselves, we are in the same way before Chairman Mao came. Chairman Mao tried cultural revolution. He tried, it almost crumbled China. But when Deng came in,
Deng Xiaoping.
Jumping, yes.
Yeah.
When he came in, he took advantage of cultural revolution and upturn it economically. And before you know it, they closed their border. And they believed all what they need in China, they said no import. You must, whatever we have, we must use it here. And we must grow whatever we need. And the same thing, now that Nigerian has got their self, that is why I want them to give me a chance. Give me a chance to look back at our economy. Look back at how we do our political system. It's quite wrong. You are practicing democracy. Okay, you are saying it's expensive. How do you deviate from expensive democracy? How was our culture? We must marry our culture and our political system. How do you marry it? We had empires. We had monarchies. We call ourselves Federal Republic.
So in a sense,
you're practicing. We have emirs, we have all this. Then, when you go to economy, we call ourselves a capitalist nation. Are we really capitalist? If we are capitalists, what type of capitalists are we practicing? We have gone all hog into capitalist without looking at the welfare of our citizens.
So in a sense, what you're advocating is a return to almost the mists of time before the advent of colonialism and all of that, to say, well, what systems prevailed in this country and how can we tap into that to create a new political and economic system that would be relevant to the Nigeria of today?
That would be Africa. We must reflect our political, economic and social life according to our culture.
The problem with that, Mohammed Kabiru, is that Nigeria was a country of many nations when it was amalgamated into one country, and it still is the problem. It has a diverse ethnic populace, each one. If you just look at the three main ethnic groups, for example, they're nation states, each one with their own philosophies, and almost philosophies that are in contrast, that are constantly bucking heads against the other ones. So what system have you, given these realities that are prevalent in Nigeria, what system do you think, or have you thought it through, what system you'd like to put in place, political and economic here?
Yes. Before I give you that answer, I want to let you know that all the great nations have diversity. If you go to China, you hear about they only speak one, but they have several other tribes and languages. And they are even in political system. China has over 7 political parties, but you only hear of CPC, because CPC is like the head. And all other political parties are also represented in the assembly. And if you look at even Europe were not one. You had Ottoman Empire there that broke into several empires, into the time before you advent of France taking over Sweden, and all there are differences. There's nowhere, no country, no continent that are one. Therefore, why do we allow what's supposed to strengthen us to divide us? Why can't Chinese say this is Huan, I can't speak Huan, I have to speak my own ethnic language? They all speak Huan when it comes to issue of the nation. They all speak of one party, which is CPC, when it comes to nationhood. But when they go back to their rural area, they go back to their several political parties and their languages, and that helps them. Even in the US, you are talking, you have the Indians, you have several tribes. But today, you only speak English, and they only have one house, and they believe in themselves. That is what we are saying. As a country, we should define our own democracy. Either we call it Afro-democracy, or whatever we call it.
Right, so you don't actually have a clear sense yet of what you want to do. But what you want to do is to, if you win power, you will then say, well, we must evolve our own system.
We have a clear vision of what we want to be.
Right.
We want to design our own political system according to our culture and belief. We want to design our economic system. For example, you ask me, when you are talking of economic system, what we have comparative advantage on is agric. That is the area we have comparative advantage. And we are agrarian society up till this 21st century. We must take our agrarian society into agric hubs to become industrial hubs of the world, so that the world comes here, not for us to go to them. It is when the world, we are able to entice the world to come here, that economic blossom will start in Nigeria. How do we do that? We must take comparative advantage of what we have, and what we have are these raw materials that the international community want. And how do we do that? For us, we ban the exportation of any raw material. And if you want to have a taste of our raw material, you bring your processing plant here.
Right, so you want to create the value chain.
We have to create value chain.
And have it inside Nigeria.
Right.
Because you must, in other words, so an essential part of that agricultural policy will be industrialization.
Industrialization.
Right, okay.
And because you must take comparative advantage. Every country that does not take comparative advantage of its own resources is doomed. American today, you can see what American is doing to Canada that are even their own brother in the area of steel. Trump have to come to say, look, I'm taking advantage of the steel I have to better the lot of my people. And this morning I saw the statistic where already the steel is already adding 6,000 employees into their post. What are we doing in this country? Even our own crude, we have to export to be able to refine.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
And you are saying we will grow?
It doesn't make any sense.
We are not here to lay blame.
Yeah, but there isn't much difference from what you're saying, between what you're saying and what the PDP are saying. I mean, the PDP are saying essentially the same thing, that if they come into power, that they are going to not only liberalize the economy, but they're going to make sure that things like the refineries, that the capacity is built, and that they're going to make sure that things like the NNPC is either liberalized or sold or something, privatized to a level where it is able to become more efficient. So the essential missing ingredient is efficiency.
You see, we don't like comparing notes with other blame game, but we have seen what they did in 16 years. And when you are talking, what are the mood? When you said I will sell NNPC, will you now bring foreign investors to take over NNPC and they will better your lot? Is that the way to take advantage of your own resources? That is not the way to take advantage of your resources. The best way to take advantage of your resources is that you close your border. You look for the money inward. We have the money. We have the resources.
When you say close borders, you mean stop imports?
For us,
right.
We'll negotiate World Trade Organization, and we'll tell World Trade Organization, It is time for us to take advantage of our own, because if Nigerian collapse, the world will feel the pulse. You have the refugees that will run to your country. You must now give us this concession as World Trade Organization. We want to now close our border. When we say close border, we are saying there are those resources we have here that you must come to us to come.
Yeah, but if you're talking about closing the border, I'm trying to be clear on the points that you're making.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you're going to stop imports? Because you have a lot of foreign companies that are already in Nigeria. You have a lot of industries that are already in Nigeria, the big companies, Nestle and all the rest of them, who make things in this country. When you say close the borders, are you saying that you're going to nationalize those companies, keep them within Nigeria, and then stop imports from coming in? We need to be very clear on what you're saying.
Okay, you see, we must follow globalization trend.
Right.
In following globalization trend, there is no way you will say that I close my border and I nationalize.
Yeah, well, that's what you essentially said. You would close your borders.
That is not,
Yeah.
yes. What we are saying, World Trade Organization give us concession for the next 50 years. What we want is that, yes, if you want to invest in Nigeria, you are welcome. But you must process whatever you are taking out of Nigeria, because this is the only way to create employment. If you are taking solid mineral out of Nigeria, you don't just take raw gold and go and refine in Switzerland and bring for us. No. We turn Nigeria into industrial hub, where you come here, take our gold, refine it here, then market it here.
That's a very interesting point. So in effect, the condition for somebody being able to have access to the considerable raw materials in Nigeria is that they must create a value chain for that raw material inside Nigeria.
the country, yes.
Otherwise, forget it.
Forget it.
Right. So if you're going to take our crude oil out of this country, you build a refinery.
Here.
So you refine it here, right.
You can take it anywhere in the world.
And what if they say they won't do it? Because the bottom line is
If
that
they won't do
if
it,
they look at their profit margin, I mean, the incentive is not to develop your country. The incentive is to make profits.
Yes.
If they come here and their profit margin is considerably, dramatically less than what it would have been if they simply exported the crude oil, they could say, we're not going to do it.
that is how we are government. We look elsewhere. We look at other advantage we can take with our resources. There are advantages to take with your resources.
And of course, one of your contemporaries, somebody that you cited in your quest to achieve political clout within Nigeria, was Mohammed Abacha, who is the son of the former military dictator Sani Abacha. That's the person you're fielding as a candidate in Kano.
Yes.
And presumably he shares this your philosophy, which might make a few people suspicious and wonder that whether how much of it borders on dictatorship.
That is why I said to you, we will negotiate. Negotiation is an instrument.
No, I understand that, but that is on the economic level.
Yes.
You also talked about a political change.
Yes.
And that's a critical part of what you're saying, is that you're going to have both economic and political change.
Yes.
So on that political level, we've got the picture from the economic point of view.
Yeah.
Give us the picture from the political point of
Okay, from the political point.
view. Yeah.
We said, okay, we are practicing democracy. We have different type of democracy. We have welfareism democracy as it practiced in the Europe.
A sort of socialist type of democracy.
Yes, we call it
Welfare, which is more of a British.
yes,
More of a British system. There's
where
a
the
strong
citizen,
welfare element.
where the citizens have what it takes.
Yeah.
And that they also now contribute their own. But now you are practicing democracy right here. What type of democracy? We are practicing capitalism. What type of capitalism?
So the democracy is essentially a copied democracy.
Copied.
Right.
We will now look inward, as we have looked inward in our blueprint, to say this democracy we are having, the main focus of government is to keep welfare for the citizen, is to be able to provide essential things of life and allow citizens to strive on their own. But this one we are practicing, that we are saying, okay, today, and that is why you see, let me give you an example on an electioneering. And when I was chairman of Inter-Party Advisory Council, I brought in 2 bills. I proposed 2 bills.
Right.
And I said, 1, proportional representation. You may laugh of it, but it will help the country. And we said, electoral offenses commission must be established, because if we want to strengthen our own democracy in our own way, we are Africa, you must bring in proportional representation. Proportional representation in the sense that if Party A, if APDA and APC, Party APDA is coasting home with just 51% vote, and APC is coasting home with 49% vote, APDA take the day. APC have to go back to drawing board. And that is why you have desperation. People are desperate. How do you do that? We say, okay, if I have 49% of vote and you have 51% of vote, we say, if you get up to 25% of the vote, you have so number of legislatives proportionally. And you also participate in the government.
Right. Well,
that reduces the burden of desperation.
Right. Okay. I have to say that I would love to talk to you a lot more. You're an absolutely very interesting character, and your ideas, I think, are ideas that a lot of people in this country should hear. But unfortunately, we're out of time. But I have to say it was a pleasure talking to you. Shitu Mohammed Kabir is the presidential candidate for the Advanced People's Democratic Alliance, or APDA. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that's it for this edition of Nigeria, The Road to 2019. Join us again for a fresh edition tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.